got the top of the hour here, and welcome back, everyone, or welcome if it's your first time that you've attended one of these sessions. Just as a reminder, our format for these is we've set aside an hour to talk about a single topic that will be of interest to clubs that are hoping to, revitalize things, attract new members, improve the culture, basically just improve their club. And tonight we have a guest speaker, Cindy Laatsch. She is a former district director in District 35. She's also served 2 years as a region advisor, so she brings a fair amount of experience to bear. And the topic that we're going to cover is club officer meetings or board meetings. They might be called it as well. How to get the most out of these events. So do you have them? Don't you have them? How long? She's going to go through all sorts of things about club officer meetings. She'll talk for about a half an hour. Then we'll have opportunities to make it more interactive and ask questions, discuss experiences that we might have, and it's really just an open forum. So with that, let's welcome our speaker tonight, Cindy Laatsch.
Thank you, Keith. And right out of the gate, I can say I am not the Toastmasters expert on how to run club effective board meetings, but over time, you pick up tips and tricks. And what I realized serving in the region advisor role, because being in Wisconsin, I supported California, Washington, that whole swipe of the Western US, they did things so differently than us. And so I would go there talking about what was normal, and they were like, what are you talking about? So one of the things that I've really started to do is realize that the behaviors we think are so normal, they may not be. So I've picked some highlights through my club board meeting life, and I'd like this to be collaborative. So if you have input, if you have questions or commentary, please throw it in. So the first thing I always like to start with is, so what does effective board meeting mean to you? So what does having or running an effective board meeting mean to anyone who's on the call tonight? Susan.
To me, short, brief, it's getting done what you need to get done in a time set that works for everybody. Not going off and having an agenda to make sure that happens.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Whoa. Right out of the gate. Okay. I heard efficient, right? Mm-hmm. Timely, beginning and end, and an agenda. Okay. Anyone else? What is an effective board meeting? Keith. Oh.
There we go. I think the board should set the direction for the club. So what should be discussed and resolved at board meetings are things that are going to further along the running of the club.
Okay. And then I see in chat, Chris added, have an agenda, have a full discussion. And then this is huge. Narrow down the information and choices to present to the club members for voting. So if you have that wide spectrum, realize that the club is engaged as part of the process. Teresa says tracking goals, and then here's a radical one, tracking responsibilities, right? That is up there as well. And then Chris says everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Use it as an opportunity for a pathways project. We did that back in the old days, right? When we had manuals, we would start our board meeting off and have someone do a presentation, which was to the group, and it was appropriate, but it also earned credit. So that's great. So first and foremost, I heard a couple things. Have a board meeting, and honest to goodness, you cannot assume this is factual. I know, and please don't raise your hand or feel compelled to, but I know there are some clubs that don't have board meetings. They don't. They might do an occasional email. I know when I was traveling and doing different roles for Toastmasters, There are some trios that don't have regularly cadenced meetings. Personal choice, but as far as I experience, being an effective board member means, yes, you have this regularly cadenced meeting. And I think it's my more linear thought. I like when I can say it's the third Monday at 5:30. The other thing that sounds so easy is slate your board meetings the whole year. Don't send out an invitation at the end of every one for the next one. Some folks do that. They do a real ad hoc. Do you want to meet Tuesday of next month? We tend to be really in our groove, and we have other life happenings. We have other Toastmaster events. So use Doodle or any of those other things where you can gather what works for you as far as meeting time, and then slate them out a year in advance and use the same Zoom link. Another great thing, you do not need to change your Zoom link for every meeting. I know that in that hysteria right before I'm trying to log on to a board meeting or a region advisor meeting or a whatever meeting, I know the stock Zoom meeting. So my theory is always make it easy. If you make it hard for people, they are going to probably be challenged to be there. So schedule them all out, consider using the same link. And then this one seems so obvious, but it is also something that some people really maybe don't do, or they maybe are getting to this point in the year where they start to look at it. Is I went up on the Toastmaster website and just put in club officer, and I gathered a whole list of resources that I'm going to send to Keith after this, and he's going to send to you. They're links, and what they are the role info, the leader letter, the club officer tutorials, which are great videos, club resources, and then what they call club management info. Great stuff. But what I found, which was so awesome, is this, which is by role. What is the role of a board member? So we're going to play a game, because how many of you are or have been a club president? Quite a few people. So what do you think are some of the responsibilities of being a club president? Shout them out.
Call the board meetings.
The board meetings together. Okay. Yep.
Set
What
the
else?
agenda and ask for additional items.
That's a good one. Always ask because other people have different thoughts. Great answer. What else? What are some other things that a president has in their duties?
Keep people involved.
Yep. Keep
Watch
people
the
involved.
dashboard.
Yep. And so this was really awesome, because not only they talk about every role's responsibilities, but they also talk about every role's skill sets that you're going to be learning. So some of them were very interesting. This one I like. Remain current with the leader letter. The leader letter is an awesome piece that is deadlines, timelines, what do you need to do? Build a cohesive team, right? That's a president's job. We've all heard, or maybe we not, forming, storming, right? Performing, norming, you've heard that. We often get stuck in one of those phases. It's our job as president to lead by example and treat everyone the same in the process. And we need to be diplomatic. Diplomacy can mean, Susan, I don't agree with you on that. Let's discuss it and see where this leads us. I've heard there can be conflict in Toastmasters. It's not something I like, but when you are diplomatic, it's really the president who sets that tone. Here's some of the interesting things that I really liked how they called out. You are learning team building, team facilitation, organization and problem solving, critical thinking, conflict management. How many times in our work worlds have we not heard about or needed conflict management? Succession planning, and then compliance with standard procedures. Let's pull the VP of Ed. What are some things a VP of Ed would do? Knowing your role is awesome for your board. What's the duty for the VP of Ed? I see some things in the chat. Being enthusiastic, absolutely. VP of Ed, how about this? Manage the mentor program. Right? Sometimes people think, oh, I don't know if that's on my list. Set the, Plan speech contests. Keep current, read the leader letter. So this is recurring. So these are incredible pieces, and I'm going to send these to you afterward. And some of us have found them and some of us straggle on them and find them much later. So effective to me means effective to one club feels differently than effective to another. So you have to figure out what is your club's personality, what is the group you're currently working with, and then you shape your meeting and your board that way. And if you are the president, your job is to just kind of have that, as they say, be 5 minutes ahead of the group, right? You need to be a little more than a mile down the road. So your job is to look at planning and conflict management. Here's something that I thought was so pivotal. It gets to be early spring and you're like, oh my goodness, we need to find a new board. We need to effectively change from this board into a new board. And you think, let's start talking about the roles. Hey, do you want to be the VP of Ed? Do you want to be the Sergeant at Arms? Suggestion that I have is every meeting you have, feature one board member. When the president kicks off the meeting, feature a board member and have it as a, like you have themes, have the featured board member on your agenda. Let's say this month it's the VP of PR. The VP of PR, I don't know if it's, we usually do 3 minutes. They talk about, this is my role, this is what I do, this is what I learn. And you can roll through the board. We actually did 2 a meeting when I was at the Harley Club. You did 2 a meeting because when it comes to spring and you're looking for new board members, they know all the roles. They know what they like. We've even had people say, oh, you know, this was actually me 2 years ago. I want to learn more about PR. I would like to try for the VP PR, but I wouldn't have known about it had we not had that little bit of ongoing education every meeting. Teresa just said, encourage members, even other board members, to take on a duty. Oh, yep, that's true. Delegating. It's important, but the person that is delegating ultimately holds responsibility for the effective process, right? They don't just swoop in, drop it and go. Years ago, I heard that called the seagull form of management. You swoop in, drop it, and go. Well, here, you're really learning how do we delegate and function as a team. So when you highlight the board at a meeting, you are really not only giving them an opportunity to express what it is they are doing, but to create excitement and then to seek other people that say, oh, I'd love to help at a contest, or I love PR. Can I do some Facebook posts? Boards can turn without an agenda, boards can turn very inward. I say invite your club members to your board meetings, have it very open, because people want to know what's going on, especially when you're talking about money and financial dealings. To me, I see Jason's doing a lot of head shaking. Yep. Financial is where I think you need to be completely open, completely transparent. Now, as a board, there's people do it 2 different ways, and I prefer one over the other. At the beginning of the year, you work with the treasurer and you say, let's prepare a budget for the year. Well, we're going to have that Christmas potluck and we're going to have a picnic in spring. We're going to buy this many office supplies, this many banners, this. So you say, well, our budget is $175. You then bring that to the club, line item and explain it, and they vote to approve it or not. What some boards do is they do it item by item. And what can happen is it's confusing. You lose track of how much money did we have? How much are we spending? So consider as a board, and this would be for next year, helping this board, track how much you're spending this year. Are you spending? And then consider educating the incoming board when you have that crossover training, which I'm a big advocate of. Meet a few times together so that you can learn. Talk about, this is how much money we spent last year. Consider doing a budget proposal to the club and seeking a vote on it. I remember when I was a new Toastmaster, brand new Toastmaster, I did not know when they kept bringing it up. We need office supplies. We took a vote. We needed pins. They took a vote. And eventually a new treasurer came in and said, I'd like to prepare a budget and let's vote on it once. And if we have items, we can add them. It's like, wow, super streamlined. All right. So I don't know, Susan, I think, and probably you've all touched on this. I don't know if it's just me. Have you ever been to a board meeting where you go and you start to talk about something? There may or may not be an agenda. And you talk about, we should have an open house. That'd be a great idea. When do you want to do it? Oh, I don't know. When should we do it? I don't know. Board meetings can become what I call very circular. You go to one board meeting, you come to the next board meeting and you say, did we not do this the last time? I thought we did this before. So one thing that several of you have mentioned in your call outs in the chat is pick an item, assign it to someone. And then what I always like to do is say, if we're doing an open house, let's say in December, and let's say it's going to be Teresa that was going to be heading it up. So Teresa, our next board meeting is November 15th. Would you be able to come back with your initial plan at that point? Yes, you put that on the agenda. So what you have is a forward-looking agenda, not this, did we talk about that? I don't remember, did we vote on that? So you have notes. Anytime you take a vote, you have to have that in the notes. Because if you're voting, if you're spending money, you must chronicle that. So one thing that I can tell you as a board member, and I've had people say, I don't want to be a board member, because they say, it seems like we go and we just talk about the same things. Susan.
One of the things that we find works very well when we have our officers meeting, like tomorrow evening, is that at the beginning, our secretary reads the information from the previous meeting, just so that we can approve it, make sure nothing has changed or we're out of whack someplace that we forgot something. But then she takes notes during the meeting, and the very last item on the agenda, every single meeting, is recap of action items. So our secretary will go through and say, Susan, you said you're going to do this and blah, 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 and by the date. And usually the dates are by the next meeting or by a club meeting where that person will announce whatever it is he or she did.
Excellent, super effective. And what it does is it takes away that phrase, when everyone's in charge, no one's in charge. When everyone's like, that sounds like a good idea, but no one wants to take ownership. And as a president of the board, if you are in that, you need to assign that or say, hey, Keith, would that be something you would run with? And then also realize there's always life, right? There's always life. So if that November date is coming when there's a report out, you say, hey, Cindy, I didn't get that. Can I send it to you in an email, or can I prep you? It's all about this constant sharing of information. That's why it does kind of blow my mind that people can do this in, I had a Zoom window there. People can do this without meeting. That's just me. The other thing, and think about it, how often does your board meet? Is it once a month? Generally speaking, once a month. So consider this, you are running your whole club with 12 hours worth of work. That's pretty surprising. Another personal thing that I have is, unless you decide to do this, don't turn your board meetings into working sessions. Right? Working session, we've all done those, where you come together and you work on a project together. If, to Susan's point, this is the report out, you come prepared the next time, you do the work in between those board meetings. You gather the info, you come up with the plan, you call the place to check how much the cost is. You come to a board meeting to effectively offer the data. It can be very challenging to people when you're like, oh, I've got to get that. Let me check that. So come prepared. And something else that I have found, effective board meetings, yes, have the agenda, yes, have new and old business. I like to always start out all board meetings with what we jokingly call around the horn. Ed, VP Ed, give a report out. Ed then says, here's how many members we have, here's how many members we're gaining. So every board member, from their perspective, gives the information, whether it's the treasurer, the sergeant at arms. Everyone talks about what's pivotal to that role that contributes to the larger group. The other thing that's a given to me to be an effective board member, and I've only been in since '09, because I know some of you have been in since a very long time. So who's been in Toastmasters the longest? I've only been in since '09. Keith?
26.
Anybody taking 26? Any other takers? Okay.
Around 20.
Okay, so we are not, okay, this is a very seasoned group. What I really challenge you is go to your board training twice a year.
What board training?
What, do you have training that's offered to your, as Jason, as PQD,
Yes,
talk about what training is offered?
we offer twice a year training that is geared towards club officer training, very specifically in the summertime, where we cover the roles in depth, as well as other things that are, at least from my point of focus, tangible things to help clubs, similar to what these are. Similarly, in the wintertime, which would be January primarily this year, although then there's one early bird one on the same day as the 70th anniversary that's coming up. We cover, again, things that are relevant to the club officers to help them build skills and build things to tangibly help their clubs.
So you're referring to a TLI or a COT training?
Club officer training, yep.
Okay. Now, I thought there was some sort of special training once the club executive is formed in order to effectively run the monthly, hopefully, meetings in which we get together and discuss this kind of like what stuff we're talking about today.
You go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
I would say in theory, the president's training is supposed to be focused on that, Todd, from the idea of how to have effective meetings and effectively lead a club. That doesn't always happen, but that's the intention, at least I believe.
Yep. And then the other thing is that I've got rolling, and I've done it in other roles, is office hours, meaning if you have questions, hey, I'm always online between this time and this time. So any officer wants to call in, ask a question, or we want to kick around a topic, that's also something that I have found that Toastmasters supply to each other. But I do firmly believe that when you elect the board and you have a sitting board, you then meet collaboratively. So you could, let's say if you do that in May, you have, or April, May, June, you can have all these crossover board meetings where you not only share the materials you might have, but the ideas, the concept. I'm a big believer in what I could have done better, what I didn't know. The old, wow, I should have started sooner is usually a recurring theme that goes across most any role. So Susan just said Menominee Falls uses Slack. Okay, so you use the app Slack. Okay, and in non-real-time, Discord helps too. Say more, Teresa. What does that mean?
Just another example of software that can be used as background conversational tools.
Oh, okay. Discord. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. We're big teams people, so I'm always living in teams. But I believe a board is really only as good as the members of the board. And oftentimes it's that you need to reach out. I had someone say, I desperately want to be this role. They were partway in. Nothing was happening in that area. And we reached out, had several conversations. They're like, I just don't know where to start. And I'm like, no worries. Let's just dig in and start. So there's always a safe space. It's always okay. I always say I failed so many times that it's okay. It's okay to fail. But right around this time, I believe whether it's a district, whether it's a club, you plan in July and August and into September, and then from then on you execute. So I believe it's pivotal that we are just moving out of what I call the planning phase that the boards are in. And some of it is just very basic. And like I said, I'm sure you guys have other things you'd like to add. One little tip and it was done in person, but you can do it in a virtual meeting as well. You're having a board meeting, you have an agenda, something else comes up. It's kind of interesting. Create that parking lot concept. If you haven't done that, create a parking lot. Say, you know what? We don't have time for that because we're going to be done at 5. Let's put that on the parking lot. And then that's something that's sent out afterward to say, hey, secretary, put this on the agenda for next time. And maybe it's a long-term goal. Maybe it's even something for the next board, but capture it all. So I'm a firm believer that board members are people that have decided, hey, I want to step up. I'm not sure, but I'm excited and I want to learn. So in growing and meeting their goals, the DCP or the Distinguished Club Program is really the ruler that measures our performance. I've never seen the Distinguished Club Program as anything other than a measure. It measures your performance. Like I say, if I buy a piece of wood, measuring it doesn't judge it. And so really using the DCP as our measure, are we growing? Are we gaining new members? Are we learning? Are we meeting our club's needs? Are we meeting what I call the upright and breathing goals? Are we getting in the roles? Are we putting in the dues? If we can do all that, we as a board have proved we are attuned, we understand, and we're forward thinking in support of our club, because it really is all about the members' experience. And working collaboratively in the board position, maybe behind the scenes, maybe quietly, is often how that process works. The member might not even know it's happening, and sometimes that's the most effective board. So I want to challenge you now. What are your tips and tricks? What are things that you have found worked or might not have worked? And the one thing I did want to end with was, have any of you ever done an after action review? They're called AARs, right? So let's say you plan that open house. It goes really not like you planned. And a lot of times people are like, well, that didn't go like we planned. When you have an after action review, you invite everyone that was involved in that, the board, the club members, everyone that was involved, and you have a neutral party come in and say, great, let's do an after action review. What went really well in the process? And you always start with what went well. Oh, people had a great time. It was informative. We got a member. You come up with all the things that went well. Then the facilitator says, okay, what could be an opportunity? And then you look at things like, we should have started sooner. That's usually what it is. Dues are due here. Don't start collecting them here. We need to start talking about that in August. So you really, in an after action review, you really, in a very neutral way, just list everything. You're not solving it. You just list everything. And then you take that document and you kind of bring that inside and say, okay, what can we make actionable out of this? The really positive part about an AAR or an after action review, it is as a non-blame, there is no failure, and it's always forward thinking. Because I know you can look at things and say, that didn't go well, or that didn't do, let's change that as a board. And let's plan, how can we effectively work together? And some of it is just by being able to look at what we've done, pick out the good things, look at the things we could do better, and then store that information so that next time when we say, let's bring this out when we're going to do the open house. So there's many people in the district I know who have done after action reviews who'd be happy to help. It's a really interesting concept, and it's really bonding as a group. Because I will tell you, human nature is, let's talk about everything that didn't go right. Let's talk about every little thing that we missed. Instead, let's start with everything that we did well, capture that, and then let's move into what could we change in the future, because you can never undo what's already happened. And I think when you make the board a positive experience for people, and you realize in these documents, all of the skills, these are resume building skills that I look at. Writing press releases, strategic planning. These are resume building skills that you learn by being on a board and by providing an effective club experience to our members. So at this point, I'd like to open it up and say, who's got ideas about boards, different ideas, other ways of running things? Susan.
I'll start off with an idea, because this is how we start off our board meetings. Instead of jumping right into the business where everybody gives a report on what they're working on and all the standard stuff that you talked about this evening, we start with an icebreaker. Now that may sound silly, but it gets you just kind of in the mood. And so I always put an icebreaker as the very first thing. I put it at the bottom after the agenda so they know what it is. For example, tomorrow night, our icebreaker starts off with, I was recently watching Big Bang Theory reruns, and in there, Sheldon was asking questions. So your icebreaker tonight is, start your sentence with, never have I ever, fill in what you never have ever done, and then we'll see how many of us on the board have done that thing. And they've got 30 seconds. That's it. 30 seconds and we move on.
How fun.
Just
I love
fun.
that. I love that. Icebreakers in the board meeting gets you kind of that social interaction. I love it. Very positive. Never have I ever. Okay, Susan, never have you ever. Let's have you do one.
Oh, okay. Never have I ever worn a bikini at the top of a mountain. I worn a
Jason,
bikini
Keith,
in
anyone?
snow and on a snowmobile, but not at the top of a mountain. So who has? And guys, not a bikini.
That's fun.
You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked if I said yes, right?
And then we'd ask for a photo,
But
right?
that's the fun of it. I mean, you give an answer like that and people really have to think. And some people will say, I was in high school and we did that. So you just never know. And it's non-business related. It makes it so everybody's comfortable with everybody else and you can plunge into the agenda items and stay on time because that's one of the agendas.
I love it. I love it. It's that fun balance. I really like that balance. Anyone else? Chris, you've had a ton of good info. Anything, any little snippets you can share? Oh, you gotta.
Sorry, you always just have to incorporate fun into all the meetings, my opinion, because if it is dry, it is serious. If you're not enjoying it, why are you there doing it? And I know not everyone has that style. And for me, when it's not fun, I don't want to be a part of it.
Okay. Make things fun. Fold in the fun. Todd, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts or input?
So these are quite informative sessions, and sometimes I wonder where I've been for the last 25 years in Toastmasters. And my background is in community recreational leadership training as my diploma. So a lot of the things that I've seen or done or made mistakes with could have been alleviated by, more preparation and planning before getting into action. And also making sure we actually follow up with what we say we're going to do.
Those are two monstrous ones. In my region advisor experience, so working with on trios on a district level, one of the first exercises we always do is do this, build this, make this. And it's like, oh, and there's a lot of kind of what's going on. If you just give people 3 minutes of time to plan it, it's so much more effective. So you're absolutely right. So investing in that. In fact, I was just talking to another district far away, and they were like, excuse me, my asthma's flaring up. They were like, you know what? We were totally caught flat-footed by dues. I said, okay, so moving forward, what are you going to do differently? What did you learn? And so it was that, well, we know they're due in October, but we just started talking about it in mid-September. So that's the beauty of things like the leader letter or the handbook on how to be a club officer, is they've got calendars that say dues, audit. So what I do is I take those dates and I put them on my personal calendar, but I back them out a couple weeks because then I'm like, okay, wait, I'm really going to start it then. So you're absolutely right, Todd, is the planning aspect is huge. And then the follow-up, right? And that's, I think that a couple of you have mentioned that in the, like, this person is going to work on this in the board meeting. We give it a person and a timeline. And I'm not saying it needs to be done, but we're going to check in. So it's huge. I think Toastmasters is like anything. You can keep pulling back the layers and finding more and more. And we appreciate, Yeah, I appreciate you reminding us about start early and check into assignments. Good observations. Tell me again, what is your degree in? What was that? Community?
It's abbreviated to CRLT, which is Community Recreational Leadership Training. It's a 3-year college program at a college here in Montreal called Dawson.
So what would you do? What is with that degree? What that sounds so interesting.
So it can lead into a bachelor's in the university level in phys ed kind of stuff, or working with sports teams. It could many people go on to work at like YMCA's or camp directors, anywhere we have, we were talking about the forming, storming, norming, and conforming under is it Demings, and that kind of stuff was taught in those courses over the years. And each semester there would be like a field study, anywhere from like a number of weeks to number of months. In the final year, it was half a year was devoted to like an HPL kind of equivalent program, where you have to go out and implement from start to scratch, from start to finish, the whole 9 yards, and then have the evaluation with the 360 kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I've worked in a lot of recreational fields. Like right now, I work on the jet boats in Montreal, which we just finished our season. We're in the process of stripping down the boats. We did 20,000 clients here in Montreal, and we did 100,000 clients in Niagara Falls this season. So I'm
Wow.
part of the team that has to implement the security and the protocols for training. And I get to be on a whole bunch of YouTubes. If you type in jet boating Montreal or Somuto, you'll find me all over the place. That's why they call me the legend.
So, now, what's so intriguing is you're kind of like an effective Toastmaster board. You're quiet, you're in the background. However, you're what makes the experience a good one.
Oh, I'm not always quiet. You can ask many people in this room. I'm just
Okay.
tired right now.
That's okay. That's okay. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So Teresa, talk about the dues. The critical part of dues is getting the cash. Talk us through that.
It's funny because I've been working with a couple clubs that are like, I keep calling people and nobody's answering their phone. I'm like, okay, so let's back it up a little bit. One challenge that a couple of my clubs have had is making sure that people know how to pay dues, whether they're a new member or whether it's September. So having a document that lists, hey, here are ways you can give us your cash, and list how do you do Venmo, how do you do PayPal, what ways you do it, do you require a check? Remind people to call you, do not email your credit card number. But before that, even before you start talking about it in like late August, early September, before that, making sure and touching base with members to make sure that they are getting their money's worth, make sure that they are happy with their investment. Hey, it's the beginning of the new Toastmasters year. What do you want to do? How do you see moving towards your goals so far? How do you feel about your progress? How can we help you reach your goals? Because if they want to be a better speaker and they aren't doing speeches, I get that we're all supposed to be somewhat self-motivated, but once in a while having that additional, somebody emailed or called or texted and invited somebody out for coffee to talk about how to do speeches, that's an investment in your club culture. So rather than just blanketing your club with huge emails, reaching out to the individuals, talking to them about their goals, and then when that invoice shows up in their mailbox, it's not the only point of contact that they've had in the past 6 months.
Yeah. Yes. I remember as a new Toastmaster, my first dues period would have been the spring dues period. You're first 6 months, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And people come up, have you paid your dues? Have you paid your dues? Have you paid your dues? And initially I'm like, what? Nobody talked about the value. Nobody talked about the experience. Nobody talked about how, like you said, how are you doing? They used to have a member, there still is, but a member interest survey. What are you looking to accomplish this year? And how can we help you? I think when we drive so hard externally on speaking about, do you have the dues? We do need to close that deal But I think as a board, we can effectively talk about value. The value. I remember many, many years ago, I went to Starbucks for a week and got a frothy drink and spent about as much as it costs to go and re-up my Toastmaster dues. And that was the core of my speech, right? I'm going to, this week, I spent $47 on Starbucks drinks, Joe Coffee Store, or renew my dues. So for a lot of people, they want to hear, why is it valuable? And I love that. I think email gets overused. Consider a note. Thanks. It's coming. People really want to know that you care. Perhaps using or having an intention statement before or at the beginning of the business meeting. I like that. An intention. So what is the board's intentions? Right? Is that what you're saying, Todd? What is the board intention? I like that. So we've got a Toastmaster mission. We've got a club mission. I like that. Susan, you want to talk about your member interest survey? I love those, by the way.
Yes, we did a member interest survey in the beginning of September because we wanted to complete our club success plan by the end of September and have it published, which we did. And so our vice president of education took the information and I worked with her. She did all the numbers, all the charting, everything. And I kind of did the proofing and the finessing, if you want to call it that, because she got the raw ideas down, wrapped in everything that came from those member interest surveys as far as what people's goals were. So how many levels 2 can we expect? Is anybody going to hit a level 5? Is anybody working on something special? We put all of that in our plan. Her additional piece, which I'm so proud of her for doing, is that she looked at the goals and the aspirations that people indicated, both personally and professionally, and she started off the report to each of the people that provided the survey results by saying, I have observed when you're at a meeting, you have a speaking style that, and she identifies what it is. She is so keen of an observer that she made it personalized for everybody, then said, what I would like to offer as a suggestion is show us how you do that by taking a role of, show us how you do that by giving a speech on, and just gave them an outline of what to do. She sent it a copy to the mentors of these people. And so now we've got a real cohesive plan moving forward. And if people choose to take advantage of her as a resource or any of the resources she can provide, they can't lose. It's just it's going to happen. So
that is so commendable. What an investment of herself.
Yeah, she didn't
her
expect it to take that long, but some of us don't know when to stop.
But I always said, in the workplace, you usually have nice people that you work with. But when I came into the Toastmaster world, it was like, these are people that give their heart, call in on Sundays, work over the weekends. They really want to support each other. And I think that is so rare. And it really needs to, and that has incredible value. And that's one of the things that keeps drawing some back, right? They come back for the camaraderie. They come back for that support. One thing that I'm reading right now, and it's called the 12, it's backwards, but it's called the 12-week year. Let me see if I can unmirror myself. This is a book that someone.
We see you fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, so the 12-week year. Have anybody read this? It is so interesting. I was talking to one of my old districts, District 7 out in Oregon. She started reading this. And this is one of the things that is, I think, a Toastmaster phenomenon. The 12-week year is this concept of take 12 weeks and compress it, and that's your year. And you're going to plan, here's what I'm going to accomplish in these 12 weeks, written out. There's a whole process of forms and things. But one of the things that it so jumped out at me is he talks about goals. How many of you have done goal planning at work when they talk about, in this year, I will do X? When do we do X? Right before the plan ends, right? A lot of people are suddenly, oh my goodness, I have to get to the training. Well, what does Toastmasters say? Club success plan. When do we say we're going to do a lot of the work? By June 30th. right, by June 30th. So if you look at that way of thinking, this way of thinking, biting off 12 weeks, then you do another 12 weeks. What it does is it takes away that I'll get to it on June 30th approach. So I'm really reading it with the eye of how can we utilize this thought process in Toastmasters? Because I remember the club success plans that all said, when will you have achieved this goal? And everyone tends to say by 6:30, by June 30th, because we're just hoping it all unfolds by then. So this concept, and it sounds like so many of you are doing that, is very action-based. It's action-oriented. Who has ownership? Let's decide who has ownership on this and then check in. And the lovely thing is we all help each other. So I was in one of the clubs I'm in, somebody said they're going to do the open house. They physically hurt themselves. And it's like, what do we need to do? Right? The troops just rally. All right, in the last few minutes, thoughts on what is an effective board? Oh, Teresa, you're talking about the club's interest, the club interest survey, which is interesting because I don't know if any of you use Microsoft Forms, but Microsoft Forms is, it's in Teams, which you can get, but Forms is a super easy way to survey people. And you don't need to have any, it's way easier than SurveyMonkey. And so taking the old member interest survey and turning it into a form is so easy to get back the data, and the charts and analytics it gives you on the back end is amazing. So Teresa, talk about the member, this is interesting. The member interest survey is just the beginning.
Well, Susan was talking about how her club had used it. And I was just noting that while it tends to be towards, like collected by the VPM, hand over the VPE, it's really a start of a discussion, because it's as people are starting to see what's available in Toastmasters, it's starting to get ideas about what's going on, talking to people about what they expect and what they hope for. And then, a few months down the road, finding out how things might have even changed. And it's a good starting point for having conversations. So rather than, I'm going to put this person in this bucket, these are things that I can talk about when we make sure that we're providing value. So.
Yep. The other thing is when you start to get your head around what people want to achieve, you then start to get your head around how many interactions of speaking they're going to make. And you're like, wait a minute, if we have 8 members who all want to achieve this goal, that's 3 speeches every session for so it allows you to kind of on a large scale do forward planning. And then there's some that says, well, I need to be an evaluator, I need to be the table topic. So it is sort of a way to help you start to put the puzzle together. But to both of your points, it is a moving target, right? It's what I think I want to do, but then that starts to change. I've seen people say, I just want to do this. And once they get the confidence, they start to develop this momentum and they're like, no, I'm going to go on and keep attending. So any other thoughts? Good discussion.
Can we talk a little about the reluctant board member?
Is there such a thing, Keith?
Yeah, there is. I've seen it now.
So you're saying they're on the board.
They're on the board.
Do they come to the meetings?
They may not even come to the meetings. So their arm was twisted to fill a position. Yeah, fine. Okay, I'll do it, which means I won't do it, but put my name down anyway, because probably no one's going to hold me accountable. And, in the last couple of years, we've seen many of our clubs shrink in size, and becomes harder and harder to find people willing to actively serve on the board. And
Word.
yeah, so, and can we discuss
Yeah.
some challenges, or maybe some solutions, right? So you've got 7 positions, which may or may not be 7 unique individuals. You may have people wearing multiple hats, and then 1 or 2 of them decide they're not really going to participate, and So having an effective board meeting with 2 people or 3 people becomes, it becomes a lot of work. And it's no longer about, what skills can I develop by serving as vice president education? It's how are we going to keep the club afloat?
Afloat, yeah. Has anyone had that experience that maybe some board members are checked out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I wouldn't say, I mean, in my personal experience, yes, I've seen it. It's not, it's not persistent over 26 years, but
right.
and I have seen it.
So, and I have too, where people take the role for the wrong reason. And the other thing I firmly believe is prepare people for the roles at the beginning. If they signal you that they really, is it meet on Tuesdays? Yeah, I'm busy. Those probably aren't the people that need to serve. So when people don't come, I guess what I would ask is, does anyone say things? I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of people say, oh, our treasurer is missing in action for the last 5 months. Like, have you called them? Are they sick? Do you know? And they're like, no, I feel really uncomfortable doing that. So,
I'm usually the guy who ends up doing it because while there might be a little bit of uncomfortableness, somebody's got to do it, and I'm your man.
yeah, I will tell you about a club I was in previously that it formed, it was new, it was really exciting. The guy who said he wanted to be president, woohoo, wanted to be president. So we were meeting, and over time, he just came less and less. No board meetings, didn't come to club meetings. And the club just went, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, because they were in a different facility, have you talked to him? Maybe something's wrong. And they're like, no, we're kind of, so I reached out and I said, hey, Matt, quick question. How's it going? And he's like, eh. And I said, so you're not attending, I understand, and this is the way I put it. I said, it sounds like right now, this isn't the right time to be president. Is it something you want to back out of and maybe look at running later at another time? And he went, yes, please. Right? Because he was pre-quitting, right? He was quietly quitting.
Right.
Right.
Didn't know how to gracefully back out.
And I said, you know what? I think you're super busy. There's a lot going on. Do you want to, I didn't say quit. I said, do you want to back out of the role and then look at maybe running for it next time when it's better timing? And he went, yes. And so I went back. I said, let's just do the process. So sometimes it's those conversations. Susan.
Thank you, Cindy. One of our current officers is not really missing in action, but doesn't show up very frequently, not to meetings nor to, I don't think she's been to any of our board meetings. So I have been sending her personal emails, which she does return, just saying that she's super busy. So it might be one of those, like maybe time to back out. Although when she's asked to work on a project with another officer, she does do that. And so one of the things I initiated is before the meetings that we have once a month, I send a little note to the officers saying, just in case something came up, if you can't make the meeting because family comes first, job has to come first also, send me your report for what you're working on in your role and I will deliver it. So, you can't every time say, I'm not doing anything. I don't have a report, can't tell you anything. Otherwise, you're kind of like slapping yourself in the face. So, there has to be some kind of progress, and I get a report. So I'm waiting to see if she'll be there tomorrow or will I get a report?
Yeah, and you are right. There have been times where repeatedly, and you know what? You can always find an update, even on the fly, right? So it's like, no updates. So it's like, okay, either what am I missing? What do they have going on? And this was truly a case, this gentleman. He had other things, I don't know what were going on. And so what he was looking for was a safe way to step off and preserve the relationships that he had. And so sometimes it's just being able to say, is everything okay? Because Another time we found out somebody was really ill. And this sort of fell to the back, but I think honesty is always, and coming from how, is there anything we can do to make this easier for you? Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? And I want to look at time. We're coming up on time, but personally, I think when people are missing and nobody says anything, that in itself becomes a challenge. Right? Jason.
Yeah, I was just going to add exactly, the follow-up is important in remembering to help them remember they're not alone. They may be not coming or something because they're feeling intimidated. They may be feeling excluded for some reason. There may be something else that is affecting them. Say, there might be one of the board members might be very dominant or have said something to them that hurt them or something like that too. And that understanding of what's going on, as well as if there's lots of other things going on, helping them remember they're not alone, that you can provide a report. We can, let's find someone else from the club that can help you do that. Or maybe this isn't your strength you're trying to grow. Can we pair you up with a mentor or someone else to help you learn and grow? Remembering that we all have different strengths and different abilities and things like that. And where can we leverage each member of the board or each member of the whole club to help each other also be more successful through what our strengths are, our weaknesses are, and things like that.
That's huge. And that just kind of human to human is so big, because in this world with everything's moving fast and social media and everybody's your friend that you've never met, there's something so honest and real about saying, hey, I'm here for you. I don't know what I can do, but I'm here for you. And that's huge. So I agree. You never know. I have a family member that's very ill now with cancer, and it's just that little thing that sometimes that's the moment. So I always say Toastmasters is life, but life is Toastmasters too, right? We're all about this organization and we're about leading and speaking, but we're here to support each other. We're here to make our lives better. We don't come to volunteer organizations to suffer. We come here to add to our lives, but to add to the collective lives. So I think a board that is human and listening and empathetic and understanding, and also we are committed to our responsibilities to each other, that's what makes an effective board. So before I wrap it up, I'm going to just remind you that we'll be sending out the list of resources, and I will send out a little snippet on the 12 weeks, because if anybody else is reading it, we could have a book club or something. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back to Keith.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cindy. Great topic, great discussion. I wish more people could have been here to participated, but the people that were here tonight, I think contributed a lot to the discussion, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. Amy, I see you were able to show up on video. Yay, good. Good to see you. Any final question for Cindy before we shut down for the night? Thanks. And then Cindy, you're going to send me that link, and I'll get it to Jason. I'll send it to everybody who attended, get it to Jason so we could put it up on the district website along with the recording of this session.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, good. Everyone have a great evening. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you again in a few weeks.